Trouble sometimes I hear, feeling in touch with fear. Freedom we all hold dear, now is at stake. Humble your hearts to God, save from the chastening wrong. Seek the way, pilgrims strive, Christians away. My Jesus is coming soon, morning or night or noon.
Thanks for spending time with us. Our guest today is, I thought he'd been on the show several times, and because he served the role sometime as camera person here and has been in and out, and I thought we'd done several shows and it had Kenny as a guest. Our guest is Kenny Purvis. And Kenny, glad to have you today.
Thanks, Otto.
And you're telling me, you got to talk louder than that.
All right, I can do that.
You're telling me that this is the first time you've been on this show in like last 20 years?
15 to 20. The last time I was on the show, we had a completely different set and a completely different format. So
that was shocking to me. I thought you'd been on.
Yeah, I was a whole lot thinner and had more dark hair, and
I remember the first time we met.
Rough around the ears.
Do you remember the first time we met? At least I think it's the first time we met. You were a student at Freed Hardeman.
Yeah.
You came to Mobile, Alabama on a campaign with a group of college kids, and you and I, I'd been there, I guess, all that week with you or something, but we were standing on that big tree that we always talk about, the big tree in Mobile, second largest tree in the city of Mobile, things older than dirt nearly. And you told me you were interested in going into ministry. You remember that?
I do. I had come in on a campaign trip. It was a good excuse because I lived in Pensacola at the time, and we were coming to Mobile, and I thought, well, I'll go down, I'll do a little bit of good, I'll work for a few days, I'll go home for a few days on spring break, go back to school, everything will be great and wonderful. Went in, Mark Latham had just started in Mobile.
That's right.
And this ministry goes way back with a lot of people, a lot of history. And we had come in for a week. We were mainly doing just work projects, raking a lot of leaves, those big oak trees shed, and they hadn't been raked in years. And we were doing a lot of work around there, maintenance. And Mark popped up one day after we'd been there for a couple of days and said, hey, I've got a Bible study over in the neighborhood. Who wants to go with me? And it was very telling of our group because everybody goes, man, look at that leaf. I got to rake that up. Let me get another bag, and I'll help you with that. And there'll be three of us holding this one bag. And so everybody tried to pretend like they didn't hear. And so I kind of looked around, felt bad for Mark going by himself. Mark could have handled it by himself. I said, well, I'll go with you. And that was the beginning of the end or the beginning of the beginning, however you want to look at it. But that changed my life.
Captured your heart that time.
Oh, man. It still gets to me just thinking about it. But
now, when I know the first time you went door knocking in Mobile, you was in the Orange Grove, Orange Grove, the community, and you knocked on the first door you knocked on. The guy was sitting in there cleaning a machine gun. Is that right?
We try not to bring that out in mixed company, but
that scares volunteers from coming. But this was in Mobile.
It was, and I was fine. The guy knew who I was. He knew while we were there. I was there looking for his little brother who was going to Bible classes with us, and I wasn't a threat to him, no more than the man in the moon. And he addressed us, and he was like, man, he said, no, he's not here. He'll be back later on. You want to sit down? I was like, no, I'm good. So, but,
that was a door knocking experience you'll never forget.
But I've had a few of those, though. I mean, the Bible talks about, if you give just a cup of water and his name and all that, and that was in Mobile where I had a lady. It was a hot day in Mobile, and I mean it's hot. It's hot in Mobile.
And those homes have no air conditioning.
No, and it was hot and no wind blowing. And I was working with Chris Boyce, who was with us at the time, and Chris had gone off to help somebody with some food and left me in the middle of the Orange Grove Housing Project at 19. It was a great experience for me, and I was walking around and been there for hours and knocked on a door, and this lady who had nothing, she had a little rickety caneback chair and no air conditioning. She had one fan in the room, and it was pointing on that chair. She invited me in and took away her seat and her fan, set me down, and she said, you must be thirsty. She went to the kitchen. She didn't have any cups. She had these, I'll never forget it, this little blue bowl, and had little etchings around the side of it, looked like a little kid's breakfast bowl.
Yeah.
And she handed that to me full of water. And I looked down inside of it, and it was dirtier than anything else in the kitchen sink. Still had food stained on the side, and and it was like, she's giving out of her heart. She gave everything she had, and she gave me that cup of cold water, set me down in front of that fan that she was using to keep cool with. She stood off to the side, and we sat there and talked, and she wanted to talk about Jesus. Oh. And we sat there, and I did that, and I thought, man, this is what it's all about right here.
That was a tough community. When we went, Brian Davis and I scouted Mobile. And our policy has always been, you go to the worst appearing community and the community that has the worst reputation. Because if you don't go there, you'll never get there. Because once you start getting people coming in and working, they'll be scared to go there. So we went to this place. And I am serious. They did not have dumpsters. And the yard where the children played looked like the city dump. There was paper from one end of that project to the other. And I went over on the back side, and there was a store over there, and I told that guy that's running the store what we were going to do, and he, yeah. He just blowed me off. I go back a year later, and he called for me to come over. And I went over, and he said, when you first came here, do you remember? Yeah, I remember. And he said, y'all have been the best thing to happen to this community, and I am so proud you're here. He said the children are doing so much better. And what he was referring to, they had stopped shoplifting off of him, or had reduced, they didn't stop, but they had reduced the shoplifting, and he could see the impact that we were taking out of the children's life, and giving to the children, giving them hope and responsibility. And when you take something, you hurt somebody else. And children are good. There's no bad children. And sometimes children make bad decisions, but there's no bad children. And I've often, they tore that community down, but there was a lot of good happened in that community.
Absolutely.
You was with us, you worked with us a while, then you went to Pensacola, worked in Pensacola. We could not raise enough money to keep that ministry alive. So you left Pensacola, went to Montgomery, worked a while in Montgomery. I may have us off a little bit. And then you left Montgomery and came to Nashville. He was working in a parts house. And was starting the capital campaign, and my administrative assistant announced that she was leaving and going with her husband on the road, being a truck driver. And I couldn't sleep. I was just tore all the pieces. I didn't have anybody to help me. And because all of my disabilities, I have to have people write letters and all for me because my brain don't work in those sections. And for one reason or other, we won't go into that. But at 2 o'clock in the morning, I was praying. And I prayed that God would lead me to somebody that could take Linda's place and could help me. And it dawned on me, Kenny Purvis is over here working in a parts house. And I had tried to get you to be administrative assistant way back before you went to Pensacola. And I sat up in the bed, and I couldn't wait for 7 o'clock in the morning to call you. And so I called him, and he said, I want to talk to you. And we went and sat down somewhere on Murfreesboro Road, and we talked, and you said, this is what I've been praying for. And I'm proud to have you back.
Well, I'm glad to be back.
You're fired. All right, what's next?
Well, it's been good anyway. I mean, it's been a lot of good years. So.
You have a degree in social work, is that right?
I've got a degree in social work and in religion.
From Freed-Hardeman?
Yeah, good combination together.
Now, you don't have a master's?
Nope, no master's. Never took time.
You need to get yourself educated.
I know. I never had the time to go and finish up the education process.
And you're playing the role right now as my administrative assistant, whatever that means.
It's a loaded question.
He is doing a whole lot of what I'm supposed to do and doing it well, so I'm proud to have him on board. What are the changes with the capital campaign and our new facility that we're moving into? I could see a person saying, why you have to have all this space, you have to have all of this room, you've got all this money. Why couldn't you be like other ministries and just keep it small and talk about that, what you have seen that we're doing and where we've grown to since you was here years ago and you come back. My question is, what have you seen and what do you think about what you've seen?
Well, I think something you just said is something for people to realize is that this ministry's never been small.
It hasn't,
it's always been huge, and it's usually been more than people could wrap their minds around, unless you were in it every day. And a lot of our volunteers who have been with it since the beginning have seen a lot of the changes with it. But one of the things that that has continually kind of evolved with it is the growth of the outreach that we do. We say it a lot, and when people get connected to us, they realize it, but it's a cradle to the grave ministry. And so that
People
means,
don't understand that, do they?
No, they don't. I mean, you kind of have an idea of what ministry is based on what you've seen and experienced by going to church. And then you kind of have an idea of what nonprofits are based on what you've either volunteered in or maybe sent money to or possibly even had your kids a part of. But when you put the two of those together, ours kind of breaks the mold of what we do. Ministry is a part of life. It's every day, it's all day, it's into the night, it's consuming. You kind of eat it, breathe it, sleep it. I mean, it's just a part of who you are and what you do. It doesn't necessarily start at 8 o'clock in the morning and it doesn't end at 5 o'clock at night. It just continues on, and whenever it pops up is when you take the need and you take care of it. And so that's the ministry part of it. And then you've got this political term of nonprofit and what that means and how we do things for, you know, the community and the benefit of the community and a service to the needs of the community that are outside of a for-profit structure. So we're relying on the kindness of others and the generosity of people and corporations and all of that in order to make it happen. But this thing has always been huge, where we're reaching out to countless families, and behind every family is 3 to 5 individuals, and throughout every housing project in Nashville, and then wherever those people go from there. They don't stay in the projects all their life.
That's what we do different than a lot of other organizations.
Right.
When they move, we try to go with them.
Right. I've been involved with a lot of groups along the way and over the years who have grant money, and they work for a certain period of time in a certain area, and then when that money dries up, then they move on to another area. We don't move on to another area. We continue working with the same life. And if that life lives in University Court, or actually it's got a different name now. That's what we called it when I was here, doesn't it?
No, it's still.
It's still University Court.
Yeah, we
okay,
still call it
so
University, yeah.
Things change names. The city's grown.
Yeah. Well, it has a name for it. It's I'm trying to think of it, but I'll
Tony
get it back.
Sudicum.
Yes.
There we
yes,
go.
Yes,
I knew it would come to me.
Nobody
eventually.
knows where that is.
I
University
understand. They know
Court,
University Court. So
like Settle Court.
that's right. It's not there anymore, but it's a landmark that will forever
It's
be.
written in our hearts, brother. It was a great place. It was a great place.
It is. I ran somebody the other day who grew up in Settle Court. When I mentioned it, we had this automatic kindred. It was like, oh, I know you.
Yeah.
So it's great.
I asked Tiffany, who grew up in Settle Court, that works for us, what was, y'all had a attitude about you grow out of Settle Court. You got a badge of honor growing up, and said, that's just the way it was.
That's right.
That's just the way
And
it was.
everybody knew it. Everybody knew it.
Yeah.
But
Go, keep going. You was on the road.
oh
brother.
no, this ministry's always been huge. We've been scattered at multiple sites around town. We've done a lot of things through vehicles and transported to multiple sites. And people have seen that part of it, but they've never seen the whole picture in one place. And by moving into the new facility at Apex, they're starting to see that. And a lot of people are overwhelmed by what we do. And what they don't understand is that that's what we've always done.
Yes.
And
That's not understood.
no. And what they really don't understand is that we've always done that. So when we walk into Apex and we see the growth that we can have there, we already see it as being too small.
I heard that this morning.
Which really messes people up.
Before I came to the studio this morning, and things going to be too small.
That's
Don't
right.
you understand that? And I thought, I can't pay for what I got now. You want me to expand already?
That's right.
It is, there are things that people see about us, like we run our buses and we pick up children. They think we're children's ministry. We'll take a bunch of children working with some other organization. I don't know who puts this thing together. And they go to carry kids to the circus. So they'll see us at the circus. And we do a lot with other nonprofits that have children that they minister to.
Absolutely.
And they work with, but they can't transport them. So they come to us and we pick up the kids and we transport them. But even that within itself is complicated, because you got to have volunteer drivers. They have to have commercial driver's license. We got a man that works full-time training, Sam Thompson, that produces these shows. He trains people to get a commercial driver's license, which is not an easy chore anymore.
Right.
And the government continually supervises that and screens it and makes it tougher and tougher and tougher. When I started out, we could use 16-year-olds. Man, I was hauling kids then. Man, we were hauling kids in style, fast, and it was great. But it's gotten so complicated. If we had not prepared and not changed and not moved with the expectations of government and regulations, we'd have been out of business. If we had been a ministry, Kenny, that built in one of the local housing projects, what people really wanted me to do to start with, and get us a community center there and work out of that center, when they tore down and settled court, we'd have been out of business.
Right.
But now, I said then, made the decision then, it's one of the few decisions I've made that's been a wise decision probably. I said we will use transportation. Of course, gas wasn't $4 a gallon then either, you know. But I said we'll use transportation, and if they tear down a community, when we get to the end of the street, we'll just turn left instead of right and take them to a new center. Right. That was probably a good decision. It was a good decision.
Oh, absolutely.
And I think now Apex is going to be equally as good a decision because it is so centrally located. It's on 12 acres. It's in a great community. It's going to be in a friendly community that will welcome children into that community. We will keep the place supervised. We will keep the place a safe place. It's going to be a place where volunteers can come to, a safe place where they can come to in the inner city and work. So I think all that, Kenny, is going to be another great decision.
Oh, absolutely.
That's going to run this thing for years long after us older team have already finished our time on this earth and gone on to be with the Lord. There's still going to be a lot of work to be done. It's going to be a great place. It's going to be a blessing.
Well, and something you just said about of everybody coming to the Apex building and feeling safe there, what a lot of people need to realize too, and they're starting to, is that it doesn't replace what we're already doing around the city.
Right.
We're still going out to learning centers all over town, stretching from one end of the county to the other almost, to where we're utilizing those facilities and oftentimes that they're not being used by the people who go to church there, and utilizing that in order to take our kids closer to neighborhoods there and reaching out to involve more people in the service of volunteerism and trying to plug them in to help out and letting them be a part of what we're doing as well. So it doesn't replace what we're already doing out to other areas, but it will help to supplement places that we haven't been able to grow.
Because we're not getting everybody.
Right, we're not. And there are some of our kids that require a little bit more attention and a little bit more individualization, and so we can do that at Apex. But when I say that number, I don't mean necessarily a one-on-one. I'm talking about hundreds on one. But there are some of our kids that need more help that we can bring in there with some of our more seasoned staff, and we can kind of do some deeper working with.
And I think you made a great point, and it's something we need to always stress because people think, oh, they won't be bringing children to my church. Church buildings are like football fields. Every time I drive by, and I love the Titan football, every time I drive, never have been to a game, but I love and don't call me and give me a ticket. I don't want to go to a ball game. I'm too old for that. Unless they're going to take up a collection. If they're going to take up a collection that day, I'll go. But when I drive back in the wintertime and there's snow, I'm always raising money. There's snow on that thing, I think, what an investment. But they still make money with that thing. You know, it's still good for our city because it's done more to bring our city together as a city than any one thing, which really surprised me. I didn't think that would happen. And I thought, when, you know, they can be playing in my front yard with the taxes we had to pay, they could play in my front yard. But this is, I think, that it's been good for the city, but it's such an investment. And you see church buildings doing the same thing. They sit there Sunday morning, Sunday night, and Wednesday night for the most part, and then the building is sitting there vacant so much of the time. And so what we just did, said, okay, we'll utilize that when they're not using their facility. We'll take children that don't have the opportunity to go to Bible school. And I think we've probably, as a community, and as a church leaders, I think church leaders have underestimated the importance of that decision. Because Sheriff Darren Hall says, and contributes inner city ministry to being the key factor that, and I've got him on tape where he said it several times, that the reason he has 2 closed jails is because the influence of inner city ministry. And people say, well, there's other nonprofits, but they don't deal with the magnitude of people that we deal with. And that's where we pull ahead in that number, is because we're dealing with so many people. A little child, it's in the 3rd and 4th grade, or 3 and 4 years old, gets on a bus and goes to a learning center and hears positive things. They eat, they're loved, they're told they're special, they're hugged. That changes a child's life. The Bible says, train up a child in the way he should go. And I think we've underestimated the importance of that in that early age of these children. And now we're starting to see, after 30 years, Darren run his figures, because he's always researching, trying to figure out what's changing the trends here. And I think he accurately communicating that this thing has had a bigger impact on our city than people realize it does.
Sure. You know, you said something just a second ago about how the Titan Stadium has done a lot to draw our city together. Being on your staff and hearing, you know, a lot of people who are talking about what the Apex facility is doing for inner city ministry, I think a lot of people in this city are hoping that by getting behind inner city ministry, that we are going to be the force that helps to bring together this city as well. That's one thing that I've noticed since I've been back that's a huge difference, is that the focus is still on the child, but the greater focus is not just on the community that child lives in, but on the entire city. It's a more city focus. And that's something that I've heard from so many people who've come and said, hey, let's partner, and we've got resources, and we want to do this, and your location is great to do that in, from, you know, government to nonprofits, who've said this is a way for us to unify and reach the city, and to be this point of service and outreach to the city. I think the Apex Center, the inner city ministry has, is going to be a great way to do that.
And we need that.
Oh, absolutely.
Because it's not just one little group of people.
Right.
It's going to take all of us. It's going to take everybody in the city to reach the city.
Absolutely.
Because people have so much, you know, the scripture talks about some people have the gift of giving. But you got some people out here that's working hard every day, and they spend their time on airplanes and in business deals and under all that stress of making money, but still have the responsibility. They can't come and drive a bus. They can't come and mentor a child. Those things they don't have the time or the skill probably to do, or the patience to do, but they can make a gift to where others can do that.
Right.
And I think this is something that's a real challenge to us, and it's my responsibility to get the word out to the city of Nashville. We've got teenagers that are not going to the churches at the learning centers because people at the learning center at the church doesn't understand their behavior. But we've got children there that can be trained to be teenagers that's grown up in our program. They can be trained to be great community workers and great leaders in the community, and can walk the streets of the high crime areas non-threatened.
Right.
And can be light to that community for those children.
Absolutely. I remember this is something I got involved with a class one day, and we were teaching kids, and we were trying to go at it from the angle of trying to do some self-esteem, life skills type lessons. And the things that we went in, we had a group of professionals from the community, and we were all looking at it and said, okay, what kind of things do we want the kids to know? And we listed out all these different skills that we thought that would be beneficial for them to be successful in society, and everything that went with that. And we went in and we started talking about these things, and we realized really quickly that a lot of the things that we thought they needed to know, they already knew. But then we realized that there were some weaknesses that they had. And what we realized when we got in that group of kids, that they had some skill sets and some strengths that we wished that we had. And you know, and having grown up in good homes and going to colleges and all the things that go with that, and having somewhat successful lives depending on the, you know, who you asked about the people in that room, and we said, man, these kids they've got some skills that are incredible, that if we could figure out how to teach that, but a lot of it they learn through survival and experience on the streets. 3 years old,
yeah.
Oh yeah. Now some of the things that they were lacking in were things that we took for granted. How to do small talk. Just talking to somebody about general stuff, those things, you know, that's hard to teach, but, you know, looking somebody in the eye, shaking their hand, things that were very simple, but you get those points across with the skill set that they came to the table with. And they went into any setting and were successful. They commanded attention when they walked in. They automatically migrated to people. They weren't afraid to talk to people. They started, I mean, they would walk up to people they didn't know. They didn't know who they were or what they had done, and it didn't matter, because they were all people to them. And I'll never forget one of the biggest things when we were talking about small talk. We talked about some of the things that you talk about, some of the things you tend not to bring up in public settings. And one of the things you tend not to talk about is politics. You never know where people are going to be.
Right.
You tend not to talk about, you know, religion a lot of times, because people kind of get a little weird on that. The kids balked. They said, oh no. They said, why don't you talk about religion? I said, well, you know, sometimes people get offended and all this. And they said, well, there's Jesus. And they said, why can't we talk about that? And we said, well, you can. And so the adults in that room started kind of backpedaling, and the kids said, well, let's just talk about Jesus. So they don't know him, we need to talk about him. And they had no qualms with talking to anybody about that. And it was refreshing.
I think with the children, and I picked up this early on when we started working in the inner city years and years ago, the children who have learned survival skills for the purpose of surviving, it's in a dysfunctional situation, they learn to shut off and to protect themselves. They stop taking in new information, which turns out to hurt them in the long run.
Right.
But they protect themselves. But one of the characteristics of that, they learn to cross culture quicker than most people do. And they learn to love the underdog because they can identify with the underdog. And they learn, if you can teach a skill of looking somebody in the eye, because they're taught not to look somebody in the eye because they may hurt you or do something to you. But if you can teach a few things like the proper handshake, whatever that is, to look people in the eye and smile, with the other characteristics they bring to the table, it really gives them an edge to go. And if you can just get them, and this is what we're trying to do with our program here in our SparksWorks program, is get the children to have confidence in their ability to hunger and thirst after knowledge. Once they start to say, I want to read this book, it's amazing how they take off. And they're fixed. They're on their way. They're going to go places.
Absolutely.
We've run out of time. You're going to have to come back and do another show with me, because I want us to do a show and talk about what you wished people knew about the ministry and what we see as our weaknesses, because we need to talk about the bad along with the good.
Absolutely.
I mean, we got a great opportunity to take a city, but one of our greatest weaknesses is in marketing what we do.
Right.
People don't know what we do.
Right.
So we need to come back. You need to come back, and let's just have an honest discussion about what we wish people knew about inner city and the great weaknesses of inner city as it is. And would you do that?
Well, you know where I work. So
That's right. Now just change his calendar.
That's right.
Well, you've been a help to me.
Well, good.
Is the family okay?
Absolutely.
Is it a 3-year-old?
3.5.
Looks like a 6.5.
Man, I'm telling you.
This kid loves heavy equipment. I sure wish I could go get on a 21 somewhere and take him with me and give him a ride for about 30 minutes. That kid would love it. I appreciate you tuning in, and if you'd like to talk with Kenny, you see our number on the phone there, our phone number on the television screen. And I want to invite you to come down and come and visit Apex and let him give you a tour. I think you'll enjoy what you're seeing because you love the ministry. Thanks for tuning in. God bless.
Sometimes I hear feeling in touch with fear. Freedom we all hold dear now is at stake. Humble your hearts to God, save from the chastening rod. Seek the way pilgrims trod, Christians away. My Jesus is coming soon, morning or night or noon. Many will meet their doom. Trumpets will sound, and all of the dead shall rise. Righteous me in the skies. I'm going where no one dies, heavenward bound. Well, troubles will soon be your happy forevermore. When we meet on that shore, free from all care, rising up in the skies.